Dear guests and dear participants, welcome to the 10th International Symposium on Digital Forensics and Security. I'm happy to greet you both as a member of the Symposium Organizing Committee and as an alumni of Malta University. The exciting journey of technology continues to tell the world new things every day. While the world is changing, we are working to be the pioneers of this change. In this context, these meetings are very important. The symposium in which we will reflect on opportunities, threats and security will open new research directions for all of us. We would like to thank all the participants who didn't leave us alone this year in order to share their knowledge and experience with the cooperation of academia and the industry. This year, the speakers at ISDFS chose one of the three options to present their work. Some of the talks, including all the keynote speeches, are going to be held in person at Istanbul Hall here, while some other peers will join us remotely to present their work. There will be also some recorded sessions from our speakers. As you can see from the schedule, there are time slots allocated for coffee, tea breaks, and lunch breaks. Moreover, there is a gala dinner tonight at Marmara Club. During your registration, you should have received food stamps for lunch and or dinner. Please use the correct stamp at the correct location. If you have the stamp for the dinner and planning to join us, there will be a shuttle bus leaving Marmara Hotel at 6:30 p.m. today. And now I would like to invite our chair, Dr. Ayşe Salman, to give the opening speech of the symposium. Please.
Dear Professor Dr. Betül Çocuk-Söten, Interim Rector, Deans of the faculties, distinguished guests, my colleagues and students, I would like to welcome you to the 10th International Symposium on Digital Forensics and Security. I'm Ayşe Salman from the Department of Computer Engineering here at Malta University. I was actually among the first ladies who studied computer science a long time ago, but we kept ourselves up to date to adjust to the fast-changing technology, and there are now many more ladies in the field, which is very good news. On behalf of the organizing committee and myself, I want to express most sincere thanks to Hüseyin Şimşek, founder of multiple University, Professor Dr. Betül Çotuk Söken, and Professor Dr. Şahin Karasar for the motivation and support without which this event wouldn't become real. I've been privileged to be the term chair of this event, and it is my great pleasure to make this speech. And due to this, I want to thank Professor Dr. Asaf Barol for giving me this opportunity. ISDFS is an international symposium originally initiated in May 2013 by the Department of Software Engineering at College of Technology at Fırat University, which is in Elazığ, Turkey. And the first symposium of the chain was also hosted by Fırat University on May 20th to 21st, 2013. Then the second symposium was hosted at Sam Houston University, USA, and it carried on. Today, we are hosting the 10th here at multiple University, both in person and online. We are grateful to Fırat University for initiating such an important event and supporting the continuation of it with the rest of the joining organizing consortia. The event then has become exciting as it grew, with the addition of motivation and support each year. Its contribution in the fields of digital forensics, cybersecurity, and computer science in general has been very valuable. With the advent of IoT, distributed nature of physical sensors create new opportunities. However, they also bring vulnerabilities. As you know, these are basically security and privacy. Also, especially during the pandemic periods, we have all witnessed one more time how data and cloud is very important. However, this brings together the challenges for which we need to be prepared. In order to avoid any vulnerability, it is necessary to explore how to deal with these changes and challenges. Such forensics preparedness and lessons learned from the past can help us to act proactively by detecting problems before they happen. Obviously, we are witnessing that this field is gaining a lot of prominence, and therefore implementation and more intense applications should be fostered in organizations, institutions, and definitely universities by offering master programs, PhD programs, projects, and also promoting undergraduate curricula. One of the aims of organizing such an event is not only scientific, but also to make the area more pervasive in our societies. We will try and we will do to continue to bring the inspired people together in forums like today's in order to keep the ISDF at the state of the art. So these are the issues I thought to mention shortly without taking much of your time. I want to express my most sincere thanks to all the organizing consortia for their contributions, support, and many thanks to IEEE Turkey section and also to Turkish Informatics Society. Finally, but not least, I want to thank to all the committee members for their hard work. I wish you all very fruitful sessions. Enjoy our beautiful campus here at Maltepe University. We have a lot of oxygen and enjoy your stay here in Istanbul. It's the most beautiful time of the year, actually. If you need anything, we're all around to help you. Any questions, any queries, so please do not hesitate. And we will have more time during coffee breaks, lunch and dinner times to discuss more issues and get to know each other more. I want to thank you all for listening.
I invite the General Chair of ISDFS, Professor Dr. Azam Barol, to the stage to give his speech.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you that you are here with us, and I hope we will spend our time well with you. Dear distinguished guests and dear participants, first of all, I want to welcome all of you to this year's ISDFS event. Some of us gathered here together at Maltepe University, Istanbul, Turkey, while some other colleagues are joining us remotely now, and they are following this stream on YouTube now. One thing that COVID shows us is that although we can do most of our work online, still being in the same physical space with our colleagues has its stars. That is still important for so many of us. Although every year's event has its own memory, this year is very special to us. This is our 10th event, and we are celebrating 10 constant years of Symposium without any interruption. We started this event with only a handful of people just about 10 years ago. While some of them, first consortium members, are retired or left this world suddenly, each year we brought in new members and continue to grow. As of today, our consortium consists of 70 universities or associations, and our intention is to bring new members to this very important event. I personally thank you for all our collaborators and ask our audience to talk to me if they want to be official member of ISDFS. Since 2016, the conference has been sponsored by IEEE Society and Scholarly. Work disseminated in the symposium have been cited by Explore Scientific Index. This year, IEEE Turkey section has sponsored. We established a consortium for pursuing this event. Consortium members are Maltepe University, Fırat University, Semisli State University, Gazi University, San Diego State University, Arab Open University, Hacettepe University, Polytechnic Institute of Quevedo and Eve from Portugal, Balıkesir University, 19 Mayıs University, Osman Gazi University, Association of Software and Cybersecurity of Turkey, Informatics Association of Turkey, Singidunum University from Serbia, Terp University from Canada, and University of Tennessee at Chattanooga from the USA, and Yıldız Technical University. Over the last 10 years, ISDFS has made tremendous contribution in research, resulting in impact in many sectors of computer society, especially the cybersecurity area. We have an exciting program at this symposium that will allow members to reflect on their ideas on the given talk, celebrate our past accomplishments, renew friendships, and extend our networks, and jointly explore current and future research directions. We hope that you will have a productive and fun-filled time at this very special symposium. My special thanks are going to our two keynote speakers. Professor Dr. Abdullah Tahafi from the Virgin University, Brussels. He will address a speech about concepts and techniques for secure and trusted learning system, efforts, and create a new IEEE standards. Our other keynote speaker, Assistant Professor Dr. Nuno Alberto Ferreira Lopes from Polytechnic Institute of Quevedo and Eve, Portugal, and he will hold a speech on overcoming society challenges through the combined use of artificial intelligence, computing power, and games. A review of some achievements on cybersecurity and industry cases. To put a symposium together is not an easy task. To that end, I personally want to thank Ayşe Salman for her role as turn chair for the event, Murat Karabatak and Cihan Baru for their tireless effort to collect, disseminate for review, prepare papers to be published, and organizing of the session tracks. Nuno Alberto Ferreira Lopez for offering WebSys workshop as part of ISDFS. Social and technical program organizers Meltem Çiçek, Emre Olca, Tamer Kavran, Volkan Tunalı, Erdal Güvenoğlu, Erdal Yaşlıca, Ömer Niyazi Erten, and Tekin Çakır for their meticulous work in support of many symposium local activities and arrangements. Also, I would like to offer a special thanks to Informatics Association of Turkey and Aries Company for their sponsorship to make the 10th anniversary symposium most memorable. I would like to thank to all of the symposium participants, you, and the reviewers for the contributions that are foundation of the symposium. In addition, I would like to thank to Professor Dr. Fatih Urda, Professor Dr. Nizamettin Aydın, and Assistant Professor Dr. Tuncay Baytaş, who are from IEEE Turkey section for their support to our symposium. Finally, my special thanks are going to Professor Dr. Şahin Karasar, Rector of Maltepe University, and Vice Rector Professor Dr. Betül Çotuk Söken and Professor Dr. Selim Nalban for their support to our event. Thank you very much.
At this time, we would like to show our appreciation to the Rector of Maltepe University, the Dean of Faculty of Engineering and Natural Sciences, and Turkish Informatics Association by presenting plaques to those certain individuals. First, I would like to invite the General Chair of ISDFS, Professor Dr. Asaf Varol, to give a recognition plaque to the Rector of Maltepe University, Professor Dr. Şahin Karasar. On behalf of the Rector, Vice Rector of the University, Professor Dr. Betül Çotuk Söken will receive plaque. Please. Volkan Tunalı, please. For Professor Dr. Emin Murat Esin.
He's out here and he's in holiday now. Therefore, I give respect to Volkan Tunalı.
Professor Dr. Murat Karabatak, please, for Turkish Informatics Association.
Informatics Association of Turkey was founded in 1971, and more than 20,000 people are members of this association, and every time this association is support us, therefore this plaque will be sent to Rami Aktepe. And he is a member of the Turkish Association of Informatics and representative of Elazığ.
Now we are watching the Turkish Informatics Association promotional film, and then Mr. Rahmi Aktepe, President of Turkish Association, Informatics Association, connects with us video conference.
public and private business and citizen also. TBD serves as a network for its members and represent their interest in social, business, and education. Professor Dr. Aydin himself was the first president of TBD. TBD has 10 main branches, 13 offices in provinces, and TBD young organization at 32 universities that contributes significantly to digitalization of all sectors and improvement of informatics as a sector in Turkey. Field of activity and TBD works on the development of digital skills citizens, increasing the quality and quantity of IT and indigenous partnering production, development capabilities, establishment of legal and technical infrastructure, growth and strengthening of IT sector, and market establishment of standards for IT sector. TBD also deal with the development of the increasing collaboration opportunities of domestic IT sectors with growth. The main aim of TBD is developing the digital economy of Turkey and increase the measures of digital transformation of public organizations. TBD maintain working groups including public IT, smart cities, digital transformation, cybersecurity, law of informatics, digital skill, IT standards, and ethics in order to provide its aim. TBD has been officially achieved the status of public interest in 1994 by Council of Ministers with considering the extent of its activities as performed. Since 2000, TBD has been member of CEPIS, the sole national representative in Turkey. Steering Committee of TBD works on conducting research on future technologies, preparing reports, preparing suggestions for digital transformation policies and strategies, and then submitting them to the approval of the Board of Directors. It has totally 13 members who are subject of expert in different disciplines. TBD is a holder of CEPIS bronze medal concerning the Europe Digital Women Diversity Charter in 2020. The first informatics magazine in Turkey was published by TBD in 1970. Current General President, Mr. Rahmi Akbek. Yes.
adına saygıyla selamlıyorum. Geçen yıl Trabzon Üniversitesi'nde düzenlenen Uluslararası Application Bölümü Lisenin sunumunu İstanbul'da 10. kez Avrupa Üniversitesi'nde gerçekleştiriyor. Bu sempozyum siber güvenlik, bilişim, yapay zeka, makine öğrenmesi, kriptoloji, yazılım mühendisliği, bilgi güvenliği, gibi değerli konuları bilimsel olarak ele aldığımız bir ortam. Bugün hayatın geldiği noktada bilimsel ve teknolojik gelişmelerin bizi ne kadar farklı yerlere taşıdığı malum. 40 yıl önce yalnızca bulduğumuz bir konu olan yapay zeka artık dünyada çok önemli bir gerçek unsur haline geldi. Bu tür atılımlar her şeyden önce modern toplum, refah ve güvene doğru gelişmenin en önemli garantisini oluşturuyor. Siber güvenlik artık ulusal güvenliğin en önemli bileşeni haline gelmiştir. Savaşlar bile şekil değiştirmiş, önce siber savaşlara, daha sonra ise bilgi savaşlara dönüşmüştür. Bu nedenle siber güvenlik teknolojilerinde dışa bağımlılığın azaltılması ve teknolojik egemenliğin artırılması çok önemli olduğunu değerlendiriyoruz. Siber güvenlik teknolojilerinin yani ürün, sistem, çözüm ve hizmetlerin yerli ve milli faaliyetlerinde özgün olarak geliştirilmesi, kritik altyapılarda kullanımının yaygınlaştırılması, ulusal seviyede siber güvenlik kapasitesinin geliştirilmesine önemli katkılar sağlayacaktır. Bu kapsamda ihtiyaç duyulan teşvik ve destek mekanizmalarının sürdürülebilirliği nitelikli insan kaynağının yetiştirilmesi çok önemlidir. Yaşanan olumlu gelişmeler en büyük sevincimiz Uluslararası Telekomünikasyon Birliği'nin 29 Haziran 2021 tarihinde yayınlanan Global Siber Güvenlik Endeks raporuna göre ülkemiz bir önceki endekse göre 9 sıra birden yükselerek dünyada 200'e yakın ülke arasında 11. sıraya çıktı. Avrupa'da ise 6. sırada yer alıyor. Değerli katılımcılar, sizlere kısaca TV'den bahsetmek istedim. Bilişim alanında dünyada kurulan birkaç sivil toplum kuruluşu arasında yer alan Türkiye Bilişim Derneği 1971 yılında kurulmuştur. Çeşitli illerimizde 10 şubesi bu işlerin dışında çok sayıda Avrupa'nın Türkiye Bilişim Dernekleri Konseyi 8 51 yıldır süren bu kararlı hizmet yolculuğunda TV'de daima tarafsız ve hiçbir maddi karşılık beklemeyen değerli uzmanlardan oluşan üyelerin fedakarca katıldıkları uzun soluklu çalışmalarla bugünlere ulaşmıştır. Yıllar süren çalışmalar, verilen emekler sonucunda ve yarım asırlık ömür içinde oldukça fazla ilgi sığdıran Türkiye Bilişim Derneği 1994 yılında Bakanlar Kurulu kararıyla kamu yararına dernekler statüsüne alınmıştır. Üye yapımız, bilim adamları, bilişimciler, her meslekten uzman kişiler, eğitimciler, kısacası her yaş ve kademelere vatandaşlarımızdan oluşmaktadır. ISDFS çalışma grubu konusunda uzman ve gönüllülük esasına göre çalışmayı benimseyen üyelerden oluşturulur. ISDFS'in temel faaliyetleri sekreterler, eğitime ve akademik desteklere kadar geniş bir yelpazede yer almıştır. Çabalarımız küresel yarışta ve kalmamak içindir. Artık bireyleri, ülkelerin yazgılarını belirleyen güç bilgidir. Bu çağda belirleyici olan bilgiyi yönetme ve teknoloji üretme güçtür. Değerli katılımcılar, sözlerimi bitirmeden önce İngilizcesi düşünür Edgar Morin'in şu sözlerini paylaşmak istedim. Umalım ki bu yeni dünya şartları siyasetin yeniden bilinmesine, gezegenin korunmasına ve toplumun insancıllaşmasına yol açar. Ama her halükarda rotamızı değiştirmenin zamanı geldi. Gelecek için dayanışma ve işbirliğinin en güzel örneklenmesini sergileyen tüm dostlarımıza BBD adına teşekkürlerimizi sunuyor. Bu dayanışmanın kesintisiz sürmesini, daha çok geniş kitlelere ulaşmasını diliyorum. BBD adına hepinize saygılar.
Now we are watching the now we are watching the promotional film of Multiple University, which has left its mark on the Turkish education system for the last quarter of a century, with its motto of free in thought, modern in education, and universal in science.
This is the place to find yourself. Istanbul offers great universities and the lifestyle is really amazing here.
So I live at the dorms at Multiple University and I'm really happy with it. There's a cleaning service every 3 days and then there's the library nearby which is open 24/7.
My first impression when I came was like huge. You have everything in one place. When you first come to Multiple University, you don't know what it is and you're like, oh my god, I need help. Guess what? You're not alone. There is the international office people over there. They're like family. They're very helpful and they're always there for you. Istanbul is the perfect mixture between ancient and modern. Coming into the city helps me discover myself, learn about so many different cultures, learning about the world, which will help me in writing future books. At Multiple University, we have a lot of research centers. Because of that, we have the ability to participate in a lot of international projects. Here at Multiple University, the education consists of both practical and theoretical. We get the opportunity to practice everything we learn in class in real life. So after we graduate, we have a degree and we can work all over the world. People come to Istanbul all the time, but what they really miss when they visit are the antique shops, which contain thousands of years of memories, and also a threat of the modern future. I like to use every minute and just get out, hop on the ferry, and just go from the Asian side to the European side and just enjoy the wonderful weather with the wonderful bosphorus behind me, and just enjoy the moment of Istanbul.
Istanbul is very beautiful, it's great culture.
This city is the symbol of diversity. Come and study at multiple universities.
Come here and feel like you're home.
Maltepe University Vice Rector Professor Dr. Betül Çotuk Söken will share her thoughts with us. I invite her to the stage, please.
Good morning, all of you, dear participants, dear distinguished guests. I would like to welcome you to our symposium, and with your permission, let me give you some brief information about our university. Our university has the Faculty of Education. We have 9 faculties. Has the Faculty of Education, the Faculty of Finance, Faculty of Law, the Faculty of Communication, the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, the Faculty of Business and Management Sciences, the Faculty of Architecture and Design, and the Faculty of Engineering and Natural Sciences, and the Faculty of Medicine. We also have a conservatory in addition to School of Nursing, School of Health Sciences, School of Foreign Languages, and Vocational School. We were founded in 1997 and have around 12,000 students nowadays. We aim to provide our students with a good quality education. In our graduate school also, we have master's and doctorate programs in different fields. I want to mention that our university's infrastructure and campus are among the top universities in Turkey. As you can see, we have oxygen-rich space varied among greenery. Dear participants, dear guests, as it is well known, digital forensics, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and big data fields have been developing rapidly in recent years around the world. As a university, we have added new courses such as cybersecurity, digital forensics, machine learning, and cryptology to the curriculum of our computer engineering and software engineering departments in order to train our students in these fields. We organized the International Symposium on Digital Forensics and Security in order to spread the work in this field, as well as to bring academicians together from different parts of the world. This event, which we have organized for the 10th time this year, is a reflection of our desire to achieve the goals I mentioned above. Last year, we organized this event at Pratt University. This event has been perpetually supported by IEEE since 2016, and accepted papers are published in the IEEE Explore journal. Thus, the published papers are delivered to all researchers working in this field. Another important characteristic of the symposium is that a significant part of the paper presentation came from abroad. I think this simply shows the importance of the symposium. In addition, the fact that the symposium was carried out by a consortium established by some universities in America, Canada, and Europe, among themselves reveals the importance of university attached to international cooperation in academic studies. I am sure we've discussed very interesting topics during these 2 days. I advise the participants who came to Turkey for this symposium not to leave without seeing the beauties of Istanbul. I would like especially to thank the Dean of the Faculty of Engineering and Natural Sciences, who undertook the organization of this event, especially to Professor Asaf Varol, especially. The two keynote speakers, at the same time, all the members of the international consortium of the symposium, and all the personnel who took part in the organization for the successful conduct of the symposium, and greet you with warmth and respect. Thank you again for your contribution on behalf of myself and our university. Thank you very much.
Today, we have important speakers among us. I would like to invite Professor Dr. Cihan Varol to lead the keynote session.
First of all, good morning, everyone. It's my great pleasure to be here, and it's also another pleasure inviting Dr. Abdullah Tahafi to the stage. Dr. Tahafi is a professor of engineering sciences faculty at Vrije University, Brussels, Belgium. He's been leading the department in major courses in the electronics design, embedded computing, and reconfigurable computing areas. His talk is going to be particularly focused on a standard that we have been working together for the last couple of years, P2824. It's an IEEE standard on secure and trustable learning systems. The title of the talk is going to be Concepts and Techniques for Secure and Trusted Learning Systems, efforts to create this particular new IEEE standard. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Tahafi. Also, just a couple of things, in case if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please don't hesitate and just raise your hand and you can direct your questions. Or there will be probably a Q&A session, 5 or 10 minutes, because we are a little bit running late, so you may just address your questions at the end of the presentation. Also, one thing that I realized is in your tickets, lunch tickets, probably there is a mismatch. There is only one date for 2 tickets. That's not an issue, so if you just bring your lunch ticket to downstairs, that will solve the problem.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks for your technical help, and thanks for inviting me here. It's a great pleasure to be here in Istanbul, in Turkey. And well, as has been said before, I'd like to share with you some experiences we had the last year regarding a very important topic, in my opinion, which is about the security and trustability of our education system. So, as has been said, I'm from the Free Brussels University. I'm mainly doing research on embedded systems. So, if it's about security, then mainly I'm contributing on the level of the embedded security. So, how to make secure small devices. Well, of course, there is security goes upon so many things, and that's, in a matter of fact, also a little bit the problem in solving security in educational systems. Educational systems, they are very broad. They go from the very small end devices towards these servers where you have all these software and also external services that are offered by third parties. So you see that it's not that easy to solve that problem. So what will this talk be about? I've tried to divide it in a few parts. First, because my message today is not only about the technologies, it's also an invitation. It's an opportunity that we have here because we are at a conference regarding security, regarding all those technologies related to it. And when you make a standard, one of the most important things is that you try to come to some kind of conclusions that are supported by a very broad, that are supported by a very broad community. And here today we are in this community. So it is in fact also an invitation to become a member of this standardization. So I will first talk about what is standardization, what is the standardization process. When I started, in a matter of fact, I didn't really know what it really meant. And in a matter of fact, I only remembered what was told to me when I was a student. And at the end, it turns out to be completely wrong what they have told me 30 years ago. And so that's the reason why I thought, okay, let me maybe first explain you a little bit about standardization itself. Then we will go to the standard itself, the so-called P2834, Standard for Secure and Trusted Learning Systems. We will dive into the details. So that's really like, we're going to take a look to the atomic view of all those techniques that might be used to create this standard. But of course, once you have the atomic view, you don't know anymore what it is all about. You might forget the real reason why you're doing things. So we're going to try to deal with the complexity by looking at the applications, and then we're going to try to connect the dots by having the atomic details connected with, let's say, the more complex applications. So that's a bit the idea of this one. So the first question is, of course, why do we need a new standard? And I'd like to share with you this text here. So just take us, I'm not sure whether everybody can read it, but just take a minute to take a look at it. There's a lot of text. As a matter of fact, simply saying what our vice rector already said. It is in matter of fact there. So simply saying we are coming into new times, we have new challenges, and we have to solve those challenges. Right? Now, if you carefully read the text and read between the lines, then you will see that the message in matter of fact is rather simple. It is shouting very loudly, the internet is broken. And the people, I think, of my age, they know that the internet is broken. For the younger people, you have known the internet as it is today, I suppose. But the internet, the first days, so I'm talking about the end of the 80s and the early 90s, was a very open system. We didn't need any security, almost no security. Passwords were just flying over the internet without any encryption. And so you could simply take a sniffer and see passwords flying by. And even it was like that, there was not a real problem because of the very simple reason you were not tracked. Nobody was tracking anybody. It was just for fun that we as students or research, that we were having a closer look to what's happening on the internet. Today, however, whatever you do on the internet, it is tracked. You have a history. And that history might be used for you or against you. And in matter of fact, the next question then becomes, what will it take to prevent it from breaking our digital educational system? The fact that the internet is broken should not have any big impact on our system, on our educational system. And then, of course, you get this here. One of the solutions that we propose here is, well, let's try to add a security and trustability layer on top of all the things that we do at the educational level. So that's a little bit the idea. That's not the only solution. The big crime, the internet is broken, has led to many people creating new standards. So at this moment there are multiple standards, all trying to contribute a little bit to, in matter of fact, this big trouble here, or this big problem in which we are today. Okay, so you might do that by doing research, and the research will, of course, create the very first, let's say, seeds that you might use to solve the problem. But those seeds alone are not enough. You have to put all those seeds together to let them grow into, let's say, ideas, principles, systems that are accepted and are used broadly by everybody. And for that you need a standard. And that's the reason why, for example, Shihab Aram was one of the very first to identify it and to say, okay, let's start creating a standard. Okay, so in order to create a standard, you first have to, go to IEEE, for example, which is next to an organizer or a body which helps you to organize conferences, also a body that helps you to create standards. So we have here the IEEE Standards Association, and in the matter of fact, you have to go to the Standards Committee, where you are going to request a so-called project acceptance. And within that project acceptance document, you will specify why this very specific standard is required. So, in matter of fact, what happened like 2 years ago, if I remember well, was creating a working group. Was creating this part, creating the working group, and then they can start working, in matter of fact, on the standard. That's a little bit how it works. So, in matter of fact, so in our case, what we see here, we have created this working group. It is called the P2834 working group. You can look it up on the internet, and there you will find the initiators of this standard, and then also the chairs, but also the multiple members. At this moment, I think we are about 40 members that are trying to contribute to this standard. Now you can, as an individual, go to what are called the societies within IEEE and try to get some support from them. And by this way, you can then propose a standard. You can do it also in other ways, but in our case, it went through, as you see here, the Education Society, the Industrial Electronics Society, and the Computer Society. So there are at this moment 3 societies that have put their hands together in order to define this standard. Okay, well, how is the standard development process they're looking at like? Well, here you see, in the matter of fact, what such a working group has to do. First, of course, we have the so-called part approval. So that's a document in which you specify the need for this standard. And then, which is very important here, this working group is open to anyone interested in participating. That's, in matter of fact, also one of the biggest messages that I wanted to bring here. You're all, in matter of fact, welcome to have a look at it and to see whether you can contribute. Right? Then there are some rules that we have to follow, but I don't think it is really important here to go over them. Okay, and then very important, and as I told you, I had a very wrong impression on what standardization meant. What was told to me when I was a student was that standards are being created by big companies, and they're doing that not very open. It happens after closed doors and so on. And at the end, they come up with something that simply has to be accepted. So, well, in the matter of fact, maybe that's true. But in the matter of fact, the way that we create standards is completely different. And here you see how it, in the matter of fact, happens. So the first thing is there's a direct participation. That means every person who has interest in participating can directly participate. You need a due process. So it's not like, okay, we have an idea and we're just going to do it ad hoc. So there is a very clear process that you have to follow. This is one of the most important things. You need a broad consensus. And as a chair of this working group, my task is mainly to make sure that we have a broad consensus and that we get input from different parties, such that we are sure that whatever is created at the end, it will be carried by everybody. We need a balanced solution. So we should not only take a look to very specific technologies, but we really have to take a look to all the potential technologies. So we're, as a matter of fact, also looking at different papers that are presented by persons, and if we find something which is interesting, we might even contact them and ask them to have their technology or their tools or their methods included within the standard. So you might get an invitation based on that. There's a broad openness. Whatever we do, we try to make it openly and available on the internet. We need, of course, coherence, just to make sure that everything goes in the same direction. That's also a rather difficult task because certainly for this standard, because there are so many aspects. And then the question is, of course, on which of those aspects do we need to look more deep? Which ones need more a higher priority, and which ones don't need a high priority? So we need to find a good coherence between all those technologies. And of course, we need to develop things. So it's not only talking about it, but it's really developing the standard itself, but also developing use cases that demonstrate how the standard can be used. And then, of course, the transparency, I already talked about it. We try to do everything in a very transparent way, so that everybody knows what's happening. So we really like reporting to multiple associations in order for them to know what we're doing. Okay, so this is what you see here is the process that we're following. So in the very beginning, there was the idea of this standard. The project had to be approved. That's related to this part that I already talked about. And then once that is done, and in matter of fact, we're at this stage here. So we're at this moment developing the draft. Right? We hope to have it more or less finished by January, and then we have to move the standard forward, which means that we can start a balloting, and then a commission will ballot about it, and they will decide whether it is ready to go for being approved at higher levels or not. If it is ready, then we can send it to the higher levels of IEEE until it gets physically published. But of course, creating a standard is not stopping there. After maximally 10 years, you have to look back to the standard. And in ICT and in electronics and certainly security, 10 years, that's like a century. It's really very long. So in matter of fact, what we are planning after already 3 years to revise the standard and to make sure that we have improved or better methods included into the standard. So it is a living process that keeps running on for a certain time until the standard is no longer needed, and in that case, the standard gets simply archived. That's a bit how it happens. Okay, so let's have a closer look to the standard itself. And one of the biggest challenges that we have to deal with is that the standard itself is very big. It really has to have so many things. So in order to solve that problem, the fact that there are so many things, we have tried to find a good methodology to attack this standard creation. So the first thing is, of course, we always start from the scope. And the scope has been defined in the PAL. That's that special document. Now from that, we are going to try to, or we have already created a general security and trustability solutions document, and that is completely underpinned by education, organization needs and principles. And this is very important. It doesn't make sense to think about security unless you look to the application where you want to apply it to. So everything related to education itself, the principles related to education itself, make a very important role, or play a very important role in the standardization. And then, of course, you have the second part, which is, let's say, the technical, technological solutions. So, at the end, what you want is that universities, but also companies, researchers, will have a look at it, and then they find solutions, technical solutions. So we need these technical and technological solutions defined here, but they should be underpinned by applied and fundamental scientific principles. So it's not only looking at it from a pure, let's say, managerial point of view, but also from a real scientific point of view. And then the basic idea was, okay, let's take these two developed documents to define some use cases, and those use cases, they can then be used to demonstrate how to use the standard. By doing that, we learned very quickly that you get stuck here. You get stuck here because we really have so many aspects related to security to deal with all of them. So if you want to deal with all of them, I think even after 3 years, we will not have a standard. Because it's really very good. So we started thinking more pragmatically. And we said, okay, let's first have a look to the use cases that we typically use today at our universities. And from there on, we're going to narrow all these general security aspects and trustability solutions and the technical solutions. We're going to narrow it down to what we need at this moment. And as I told you, within the life cycle, we can repeat that. So new use cases will come, we create new, or we define the methods that can be used for those use cases. So that's a little bit the idea now, that we are not simply going to try to define everything. We're going to narrow it down based on what you really need at our universities today. Okay, so that means that somehow we said, okay, we have to look to the fundamentals, and if we want to break down the standard to its fundamentals, we see here that you have the security hardware aspects that you have to take into account. Then you have the network security aspects. Then you have all the security aspects related to the software, the data, the users. So that's also a huge part. And then a very important part, that's everything related to the management and the governance of the security itself. Somebody has to govern all these security aspects. Now, once you have divided it within these chunks, then you can start thinking about, okay, what are the basic concepts that we want to use to implement it. Now, for the hardware, we might think about, for example, FPGA accelerators. I'm not sure whether everybody is aware of what FPGA means. Well, let me simply say it is a way to implement high-end computational demanding algorithms on a platform, but with very low energy, because that's another problem to be solved. You can deal with security, but it takes so much computing power. And if you have end devices or routers that have only very little energy availability, well, then you have to rely on other technologies. So you might think here about these accelerators that might implement your encryption, whatever algorithms to deal with the security. Of course, what we also see is that there are a lot of chips already available with embedded security engines. So that's also one of the things that you simply have to add in the standard. Take a chip which has a very good, for example, AES embedded security engine that can deal with the computational needs for the encryption and decryption. The routers and the end devices, they have to be, that are also physical devices, and they have to be secured as well. One of the things that we have been working on the last years is, for example, in the routers. What we try to do there is we already add there some engines that are sniffing the packets, and that simply try to find out whether there are anomalies, whether we can detect the anomalies already on the network. So if you already detect it on the network due to the traffic that is happening on the network, you can more easily or faster, maybe not more easily, but at least faster. You can detect much faster when a certain zone is being attacked within your system, right? So you see that, there's a lot of things to be done here. And then you might, in a matter of fact, think about some use cases that, for example, implemented these technologies or these techniques. On the network layer, there you might also think about the cloud security, the edge security, the fog security. Again, here is a very, very broad area of research. There's a lot of work being done there. If you have a look to the software data and user aspects, there again, you can think about, okay, what are the security protocols that we already have in our operating systems? Should we add things there or not? how to deal with user identification, how to integrate artificial intelligence, and how to deal with the data mining aspects, taking into account all those threats that we might have, right? And then, last but not least, the things related to the governance and the management of the security. One of the things, of course, if something goes wrong, you want to know where and when and how. Right? So we need to have some kind of forensic evidence. Now, when we decided that the forensic evidence was so important, we simply said, okay, you cannot have forensic evidence unless you integrate forensic protocols within all these other aspects. So already on the level of the hardware, you have to take into account the forensics. So also on the security of the network aspects and everything related to the data, the user, and the software that is being used. So forensics is widely spread over all those elements here. That's again one of the, I think, innovations in this standard. None of the other standards have proposed the forensics to be implemented so broadly. Then, of course, there is the incident response. If something happens, how do you respond to it? Well, I can speak of my own experience. Somehow my account was hacked, my email account was hacked, university email account. However, my Google account never got hacked. It's very strange. My university account got hacked. And somehow, of course, the tools on the university, they simply detected this is not the way that Professor Tahafi is sending emails. So they simply shut it down. It was automatically. It was automatically, after I think 1 day, it automatically shut down. I realized that I couldn't send any emails anymore. I could still receive, but not send. And so what happened is that I had to take contact with the governance, and then they had a procedure that I had to follow to make sure that all the stuff that was creating that got out of the system. So first we had to identify what was the cause. It was an old computer that was infected. I had started it up, and like a half hour later, my account was hacked. It was that simple. So of course, the fact that I could identify where it was coming from, thanks to the logging of the hour when it started, I was able to make this link with that computer that had been started. We were able to take away the, let's say, the cause, and then after we had taken away the cause, they could see that indeed all these malicious emails that were sent using my email account stopped, and then they knew, okay, the problem is solved, and I got back access to my system. So this is just a very an example of what might happen. So this anomaly detection or automated anomaly detection is really doing its job. Then of course you have the security risk assessment. Security risk assessment is very important because at the end you have only a very limited amount of money to spend on your security. So a security risk assessment will for sure help you to define or to find out where you have to put the most money. So the highest security risks with the highest potential that it will also happen, well, that's where we have to invest. And then of course the security governance, as I told you, you need some kind of a governance body that has very clear rules that can be followed to solve the problems when they happen. Okay, so there are of course teams that we have created. So for the security hardware we have created a team. The same for everything related to the network aspects, the same for everything related to the software data and user aspects, and exactly the same we have done for the management and the governance aspects. These teams are, this is not a full team, this is not a full working group, but this is the drafting team. So this is a team that is at this moment writing on the texts and the IDs. So again, this presentation is also an invitation to persons that feel the need to have their insights added to this standard, or have some ideas and want to see them into this standard. So the timeline that we try to follow, we started somewhere in January. We first started with creating some definitions, defining those basic concepts, the basic security architectures. Then we started looking at the security methods. So the whole list that I've presented has been worked out during that time. At this moment, we are looking at use cases. We are defining use cases. We also, and this is the very first presentation at a conference this year. So we are going to challenge the work that we do, and we think it's very important to challenge it in order to find the flaws within the methodology. So that's the reason why I'm also here today. We challenge the work, and you can ask questions, and we want you to point out whatever you think is wrong within the work that we're doing. And then, also very important, we want to have more students involved. PhD students, graduate, undergraduate students, that have interest in things related to security and forensics, these kind of things. So we have created a student challenge, and the student challenge will be sent out to multiple universities very soon. And the basic idea is that the students, they will get access to all the documents of the standard, and they will get a task. And the students that come up with some interesting solutions, their solutions, they will of course get a prize. I think it's something like 2,000 or 3,000 euros that they will get as a prize, so it's a money prize. But they will also get the opportunity to have their solutions becoming part of the standard. And I think that's a quite high honor for students, that they can say, look, my work was so good that it has been added to the standard. By October, we hope to have the semi-finalized draft, and we are also going to organize some conference tracks specifically around this standard in order to share all the ideas that have been created regarding this standard. And then somewhere by January, we hope to finalize the draft, and then we can go to the next phase within the standardization process. Right? Okay, let's go and dive into the details. I call it the atomic view because there are so many. I mean, it's really like you're taking you're diving so deep that you only see the details and you don't see the big picture anymore, right? But that's also important because you need somehow to understand what are the details and which of those details play an important role and which of them are not so important. Now, in order to do that, we have, fortunately, you don't really see, we have tried to make some kind of a mind map. The mind map became quite big. And as the mind map became quite big, we already had some kind of a measure that tells us what's the complexity of this standard. I think this was the very first important exercise that we have done. And of course, when you see that, you try to put things together and to organize it in a way that you can handle it. So what we have done is we have tried to organize everything within, let's say, three perspectives. The first perspective is from what we could call the learning systems designer. So that are, in matter of fact, non-technical people, but people from, let's say, at the educational level or at company levels, where they think about the educational, so the learning system itself, but they don't have a clue about security. Now, our document should be able to tell them how to implement security within their learning system without having a very deep knowledge on security. So this was the very first thing that we decided on. Second thing was, of course, somebody has to build it. So we defined then also how the system should look like, but from a learning system technology designer. So the technology designer, he wants to get those low-level details, and he should find information about, okay, if I would like to implement this within my router, and so that it complies to the standard and it can be used, let's say, within educational context, well, what are the things that I should add to it? So that's the kind of information that they can find. And then, of course, you have the security governance designer. Of course, at university, we have a governance board that deals with security. In Europe, it is now obligatory. So at European level, they simply decide you do it. If you don't do it, you get a fine. It's that simple. So all big companies, all universities simply have to do it. And of course, we want to create for them also, let's say, some rules or guidelines that can help them to implement this within their educational system. And then if we start going to have a closer look to everything that the learning system designer has to deal with, then we have tried to split it within, let's say, some layers. We can talk about the user layer, without the student, the academic person, the administrative person that have access to the resources. Of course, you have this access right management, but you also have the delivery aspects. Who are the recipients? Is it always undergraduate graduates, or are it PhDs, and so on? And then another thing which was not really in our scope, but turned out to be important, the content itself. The content itself might have some limitations related to the pedagogical aspect, but also psychological aspect, philosophical aspects, in the sense that, and maybe you remember that I think last year or 2 years ago, I can't remember very well, but a few years ago, there was killing at a school because of simply the teacher was showing things to students and they felt offended. It created some kind of a loop, and yeah, a sick person then killed the teacher. So taking account these things within your security aspects is so important. Then of course you have this lab layer security and trustability. So in matter of fact, here we're going to really look at the lab level. Your laboratories, you want to give people access to it, but so you need some kind of a trust management and right management layer. So who can have access to vision apparatus? And when can he have? Because it's not because he's subscribed to the course that he should have access. Suppose that the lab equipment is so dangerous that he should be able only to have access to it after having some other courses, but somehow you have to take that into account. So this physical access to machines, lab equipment, and smart devices, that's also something we have to take into account. Then of course the safety aspects in relation to users to the users' know-how and the educational progress that they have. And then of course there is fairness. Fairness, one of the things that happened a very long time ago during my student time. Then you had this, some students, they had this pleasure to go to the library, you get a reference from your professor, you're looking for it, you find it, but after using it, instead of putting it back where it belonged, they put it somewhere else back, so nobody can find it, and only they can find it back. That's unfair. And with machines that are interconnected to the internet, you can have similar things. So you get some time to use the lab equipment or the machines or whatever. During that time you're using it, but you might stop others from using it after you, and that should not happen. Right? So fairness is also quite an important aspect here. And then of course you have this incident response and anomaly detection process. So we need a sound forensic implementation of all the subsystems and also a sound anomaly detection of all the subsystems. So this is, let's say, this very first first view from the learning systems designer. So if we have a look to the learning system technology designer, then you see it becomes more technical. So it's really about how to interconnect the educational things. What about the hardware layer concepts? So what about embedded security? What about all the technologies used for the embedded security? What about this applied to the sensors and actuators? Because many of those things are related on sensors and actuators. What about the edge devices? We will see it's a booming business at this moment, at the edge business. Many companies are at this moment creating new edge devices, and we will see them appearing in our labs. Very specialized edge devices. Then, of course, you have some advanced techniques for embedded security, how you can use them for anomaly detection, for example, how to use blockchain technologies. So these are already a few aspects that we can take into account. Then on the software layer, there's a lot to do about the operating systems, what about the security services they can offer. Are there other aspects that we have to take into account related to the operating system? Is it an open operating system, closed one? How to deal with it? Then you have the system aids, for example, the visualization software, the the applications that are running, the database layer, the web server layer, and then of course very important, the application interface. At this moment we have an API industry, an application interface industry that is growing very fast. So you use a service and you pay for the times that you get access to this service. And we will see that these application interfaces, if they are not secure, then your system becomes quite vulnerable. Then of course you have the network layer concepts, and then the cloud edge and fog layer concepts, where you also have multiple methods that can be implemented there. Then the third thing that was related to the security governance. So how does the security governance have to look at it? Well, very important is that your educational institute, to be more or less protected against harmful attacks, you need this security governance next to security policies and procedures, the implementation of security, the countermeasures, and also monitoring tools for security, and also monitoring tools for the countermeasures. So all these things have to be taken into account. Right? There are many reasons, and I try to sum them up here. So there are really many reasons why you should do it. I'm not going through them, but just have a look at it. Just to say, it is necessary to have these governance aspects in your university. Okay, now let's get to the next part, dealing with complexity at the application view. So, how to deal with the applications, or how should we create our application, our demo applications, or user cases? Well, we could think in vertical way. And then we could say, okay, for the hardware, we're going to make one simple use case. For the software, for the network, we make this use case, and so on. And all those use cases, you might then add them together and create some kind of a complex use case. Now, this is a very simple way to do it. However, it has a big disadvantage. After a discussion, we came to the 2 minutes. We came to the conclusion that this is really not so simple, in the sense that you might lose your sight on, let's say, the global. And that's the reason why we opted for going for this kind of horizontal view, where we take a big use case, which is simple or complex, and where we deal with all the aspects related to it. So that's the matter of fact the other thing. So let's connect the dots now. Well, in order to connect the dots, I started from this here. It's a use case where we use Smart City as a learning environment. So what the students get, and that's once a year that we do this, they get a tablet that acts also as a gateway, it's a smart gateway with some sensors on it. We send them into the city together with the first year students, so you have the first year students together with the third year students, and then they have to discover the city and tell us something about the city. We use that exact same technology, but then also for children, where they could experiment with it with, let's say, a small smart city, and where they also get knowledge about what is a dashboard, how to get this information there, and so on, right? And, well, behind that, you have, of course, this here. And then, of course, you have to start thinking, okay, this is the architecture of my system. Now, how to deal with all those different layers and implement security in all those different layers, right? Of course, you can do it that way, and then you start thinking, once you have included everything related to security, you also have to think about how to add all these forensics on the different levels in order to make sure that we can trace back when things go wrong. Okay, so this is, here I conclude my presentation. Well, I think the biggest conclusion here is you're all invited to become a member of our working group, and we want you to challenge this work, so we want to find the flaws, and you're all invited to challenge us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Tahafi. We've got about 5 minutes for Q&A session. If you want to ask a question, I can just give you the big microphone and you can directly ask your questions, okay?
So thank you very much for this interesting presentation. My question is about distance learning. As you know, in 2020, in March, we met with the pandemic situation, and therefore we had to change our teaching style. And the most people, I mean, in terms of teaching, they could not use the tools about the distance learning. And in our university, we had good facilities earlier, and therefore we didn't meet with difficulties to teach our students, but some people could not make arrangement about that. You are creating some standards about the distance learning too, if I got correct from your presentation. But how can we protect our privacy when we are using distance learning? Because you know there are some students, they don't want to turn on their camera, and they are telling, okay, I am at my home, I don't want to open it. And but on the other side, we are not sure whether the people are correct people or they are fake people. We have some standards about that. And what about during the teaching in terms of distance learning, blackboard, scholarship, IAS, etc.? Do we have standards in this area too?
So at this moment, no, I don't think so. So there are no standards yet dealing with those very specific aspects. Even though I have to say that I'm aware of a standard that is trying, for example, to deal very specifically with remote labs. Right? So, as I said, the problem space is so big that it will take multiple standards to deal with it. And the first thing, of course, is to identify the needs. And I think, as you have identified now a very urgent need, this might become a good reason to apply, for example, for a standard that deals with that very specific case. We face exactly the same problems at our university, in the sense that for examinations, for exams, we use third parties. So third parties that, in matter of fact, have procedures that the students have to follow to be compliant to do a remote examination. So there are at this moment companies that provide it. So they record everything, and you have to follow procedure like showing us your room and so on and so on. The student doesn't have, unfortunately, any choice in that. Also, what they hear is being, the sound is being recorded. So from the perspective of privacy, at that moment there is no privacy at all. So the only thing, the most important thing there is that we have to make sure that the test is being taken as fair as possible, right? And I think this is one of the aspects. When do you want to use one of those measures, and what's the price that you pay for it in terms of privacy mitigation? But on the other hand, what do you gain with it, right? So we have to pay a price, and I think for examinations at this moment, that's the most vulnerable. That's let's say an example where we really infringe everything related to privacy, because of the simple reason they have to comply. But regarding the other tools that we have, at this moment we don't really enforce or force our students to be visible. However, we track everything. Just to give you a very small example. So we, as a teacher, we see more than what our students see. So we have, for example, this virtual board on which we are making our presentation, on which we can draw and so on. But the student, they can also draw on it, right? Now the thing is, we see who is drawing on the board, but they don't see which of their cameras is drawing on the board somehow. And then you, of course, always have some kind of students that are funny and they start drawing things that are not supposed to be drawn on the blackboard. But the fact that you have this information, like this person is doing that, you can simply tell him, hey, mister, I think you're a very good artist, but this is not an artist class. See? So there is like some kind of interaction that we have with the student. They have to get used to it, we have to get used to it, and this way we get along. But of course, getting that into a standard is not that easy, I think. And really defining up to what level do we want to infringe our rights regarding data protection, regarding privacy. I think that's even an even more difficult question. And maybe even, I think, a question which we cannot, as technicians, or let's say the person from the technical side, I persons from psychology and from education. They have a much better insight on how we react on these kind of things. I hope this more or less answers your question.
I think there is one more question on the 1 minute time, please.
Thank you, Professor Abdullah, for your presentation. I joined in the middle, but I got the idea what efforts you are taking. I'm Professor Shehzad from University in Pakistan. I just traveled to attend this very, informative symposium. My concern or question is that when we talk about learning systems, so would these standards will cover only classroom teaching or it covers like other training modules or like Coursera, pandemic time we have used these also for to support the to students learning. If it's online, they are not happy, they can use these sites. So it was free in that time in Pakistan as well. So these standards will cover also privacy and security in those platforms.
Yes, indeed. Yes, the basic idea is that indeed will also take those aspects into account. And as we said, it is very big. It is very big. So we're at this moment trying to identify some good use cases, and of course, that's one of the major use cases that we would like to harness as well. So at this moment, the ideas are, okay, let's see how we can deal with, for example, remote labs, virtual labs. Then you have also the distance learning, which is a very nice use case. So indeed, yes, we're going to start from those use cases and then get back to the basic principles that have to be used to implement it.
Dr. Tahafi, before we let you see it, we'd like to show our recognition by giving you a clap. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for this very nice play. From my side, I'd like to thank, of course, the audience, but for sure always also the organizing authority for inviting me here and being here in this very beautiful city. Thanks a lot.
There are 9 sessions in the symposium this year. Dr. Ayşe Salman will moderate artificial intelligence presentations. Please.
Hello again. It will be now I will be presenting, I will be moderating the artificial intelligence presentations. Please notice that I'll drop the titles when I call the presenters. I hope it's accepted for everyone. The first paper is on comparison of forecasting algorithms on retail data by Ferit Dinçoğlu and Hüseyin Aygün. Hüseyin Aygün, would you please proceed here at the table? Yes, if you could please. It will be 10 minutes, and I will have questions for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Professor.
Hüseyin Aygün, just before you start, may I invite the other speakers as well, so they get their places here at the table. May I also invite for real-time Bitcoin price tendency awareness via social media content tracking. Hüseyin Harzmed will be the presenter. Is he available? Is he here? Hüseyin Harzmed he'll be joining online, okay. Swarm intelligence approach for future selection problem, Eva Tuba from Singidunum University. Would you kindly take your place as well? And also Tankut Acarman from Galatasaray University for a new method of automatic content analysis, disaster management. Is he here? Okay. Would you please kindly take your place here at the table as well? I'm sorry, Hüseyin Aygün, please start.
No problem. Good morning again. I will present the paper titled Comparison of Forecasting Algorithms on Retail Data. Contents is on the screen. Today, all of us know that knowledge is the biggest power. As the data gathered in our computer systems, it became very important to obtain valuable information from raw data. Valuable information means knowledge. If we can achieve knowledge, then we are on the right track. Many sectors, including retailing, banking, insurance, health, education, and e-trade, they all need valuable information. And in retailing sector, big data, these methods are being used. Association rules, sales forecasting is very important, order forecasting, another important point, and campaign management. So the goal here is to increase basket size, increase sales, increase profit, and decrease costs. In this study, we will perform sales forecasting on retail data depending on historical customer buying behaviors. Previous work, many studies have been performed on large data sets in retail, automotive, education, health, and other sectors. Performances of different algorithms were compared with each other or they were used together. Some of the most recent research done in forecasting area are, the name of the paper is Short-Term Forecasting of the Coronavirus Pandemic. In this study, time series and card methods were used together. Another study, comparison of machine learning methods for photovoltaic power forecasting based on numerical weather prediction. In this study, 24 machine learning models were compared and contrasted. Another study, a comparison of deep learning methods for urban traffic forecasting. Here, 4 different deep learning algorithms were compared. And another one, predictive analytics for demand forecasting. A comparison of SARIMA, which is time series, and LSTM, which is neural networks in retail supply chain management. So, our problem statement is to compare 2 of the forecasting algorithms on retail data. This is very important because in retailing, we need to analyze our data using predictors and do forecasting so that when the customer arrives in store physically or online, the customer should be able to find the product. This paper is taken from the MSc thesis of my student who is working for Migros. Migros is one of the first and largest retail stores of Turkey. It has thousands of stores in Turkey and in other parts of the world. And in the research center of Migros, 2,200 research personnel works, 150 projects are being conducted. Some of the projects are association rules analysis and N. coli in Turkish. So this study is done to achieve sales forecasting. My student was sponsored by her company, but not the project, only the students' tuition and fees. For comparing forecasting algorithms, we used 2-year data, years 2018 and 2019, and we chose 2 stores of Migros. The characteristics of the stores are one store, which is 5144, has low sales volume, no seasonality, no campaign or special day sensitivity. So this store is in a low-income area of Istanbul. The other store has high sales volume, seasonality, campaign, and special day sensitivity. So this is in one of the richer parts of Istanbul, let me put it that way. And in this study, we used total basket data, meaning sales data of a store in terms of basket totals. And also we used basket details, and also we used promotion data. Because during promotions or campaigns, the sales volume changes. The number of records, receipts, distinct receipts in each stores are for year 2018, 1 million for a store, for a low sales volume store, and for the second year 2019, again 1 million. And for the largest store, it is 10 million for each year. As a tool, we use IBM SPSS Modeler. This tool helps you merge data, filter data, declare data types, helps you manipulate and mask data, models with statistical and algorithms, and gives you useful reports. The data we received was in 6 pieces. The first 3 part is for the first year, and the second 3 part is for second year. So we merged the 3 data in one using the SPSS tool. So this data includes basket totals, basket details, and promotion data for both of the stores for 2 years. And during data preparation, this is one of the most important steps in data mining and of course in forecasting, before forecasting. We use data prep module to clean the outliers, to do data cleaning. And also considering a new pattern can be created, we added weekdays to the data, which are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on. And finally, we came up with this data, as seen on the screen. We used 2 methods, time series and regression, for forecasting. So we will compare these 2 models. As I say, we use 2-year data. One data set is 2-year data, the other one is 1-year data. In the first one, we use regression model for 2-year data and then 1-year data, and then time series model for 2-year data and 1-year data. A regression model is created following these steps. I'm not going to go into details, but as I say, 2-year data and 1-year data is prepared, and also days and special days information were added into the data. For days and weekdays, average total values were calculated for the amount, total and special day flag columns. Regression model was run for both of the stores, and then we used graphics and tables to compare the performances of the models. So when we check the graphics after running regression, we see that regression performs pretty good for both of the stores. And in the table below, the MAPE, which is mean absolute percentage error, or error rate, let me put it shortly, error rate for the first store, for the large volume sales store, 1%, and for the other one, 2%. This is very successful. I mean, if the error rate is lower than 10%, it is very successful. In fact, it is accepted that if the percentage is between 10% and 20%, it is still acceptable. But ours is very good. And the previous one was for 2-year data. As for 1-year data, the success rates drops down to 1.2%. I mean, the error rates drops down to 1.2% and 1.4%. This is even more successful. And when we check the data error rates on base of weekdays, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and compare with 2-year data and 1-year data, so we see that error rates are lower with 1-year data. And largest error rate is Sunday for high volume store, and for low volume store, it is Saturday and Sunday, I mean, on the weekend.
If you could kindly.
Okay, I will go real fast. Time series model, we follow the same way, so we implemented using 2-year data and 1-year data, and we see that there's deviation between actual and predicted values. For the high volume data, it is because the deviation is because of New Year's. This doesn't happen for the low volume store. And in New Year's, much larger sales were done than previous years. As for the low volume store, deviation happened during the religious holidays. And much larger sales in religious holidays were done than previous year. So the error rates 3.4 for large volume store and 4.6 for low volume store. Daily error rates are as seen on the screen. So when we check in general, I mean, when we forecast 2020 data by checking 2-year data and 1-year data only, we see that regression performs better for store with high sales volume. And for low store volume, if we check the real data in 2020, we see that both of the algorithms are almost the same. Their performances are almost the same. So as a result, we can say that both of the models performs very well. Regression is better than time series, but we cannot say that we cannot use time series because for both of the models, the error rates are below 5%. So any of the two models can be used for forecasting in retail sector. Thanks a lot for listening. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer.
If nobody's asking questions, may I ask a question to
Sure.
Hüseyin Aygün? We have exceeded the time, I'm quite aware of that, but it will be a very short question. You said you selected two models and also two stores. You explained the description of the stores, one from one area, the other one is coming from another area. But why did you select two? I would like to know.
These two models, when we do research for the previous work, we saw that these two models are performing better than the other ones. So we chose the best performing models and contrasted them. And also we chose two stores which are different from each other. One store is high ranking area of the city, and the other one being in a low sales income. By this way, one of the stores has high sales volume, seasonality and campaign and special day sensitivity, but the other store has the opposite. So we want to compare how the algorithms would perform on such two different stores. I hope it's...
Many thanks, Hüseyin Aygün.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
So we completed Pelin Dinçoğlu and Dinçoğlu Hüseyin Aygün's presentation from Maltepe University. The second presentation is online. Real-time Bitcoin price tendency awareness via social media content tracking, and the presenter is Hüseyin Hazime. Okay, Hüseyin Hazime, can you hear us from Arab Open University of Beirut, Lebanon? Do you hear us?
Good morning. Yes, I can hear you. My name is Hussam Mustafa.
Okay. Yes, go ahead. Just please say a few things about yourself, and you can start. You have 15 minutes. Mostly 10 minutes will be your presentation, and 5 minutes will be left for the questions and answers. Please go ahead.
Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my paper presentation about Bitcoin real-time Bitcoin price tendency awareness via social media content tracking. My name is Hussam Mustafa. I have a master's degree in cybersecurity, forensics, and machine learning. I'm from
Sorry,
Lebanon.
Hüseyin
My
Hazime,
degree was...
I will interrupt you. Just if you have a presentation, could you please share it with us so we could all see? Oh, you did. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, I already shared.
Yes, we saw now. Thanks. Sorry, we don't see the rest of your presentation. Hussein Hazime, are you there?
I'm Hussam Mustafa. I will be presenting the paper, not Dr. Hazime.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Sam Mustafa. Okay, then. But we cannot see the rest of your presentation. If you could please.
It's already been.
Okay, now we can see. Okay.
Okay. Shall I start, Doctor?
Yes, please do. Yes, we're waiting for you. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead. Floor is yours. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. My paper consists of these outlines. I will be giving a small introduction about my work, the related works to my paper, what was the research problem, a small briefing about some terminologies and definitions I used in my work, then the methodology and the results, and finally conclusion and the future work I would propose. In the last few years, social media networks have taken a large scale of the internet space, which I would like to describe as the unlimited source of information. This ability of these social media networks to share knowledge, to discuss topics, to express the user's emotion, gave it the ability to affect the individual behaviors and their decision-making concepts. One of the main topics that has been introduced on the social media the last few years is the digital currency and the crypto mining topic, with all its related news and events, and furthermore, the continuous seek of the traders and researchers to explore and predict such volatile market and to discuss its potential projects and to give feedbacks about these coins or crypto coins. In this section, I just wanted to present some previous papers and references related to my topic that shows that the sentimental analysis of the social media networks, such as the Google News, the Reddit posts, the Twitter tweets, had a significant effect on the market prices, and it helped in predicting these prices, whether it will be going up or down, and thus helped in the trading decisions done by investors or users. According to the various previous studies, there's a huge interest of the social media community to track and to be informed about all the news or events or mostly the announcements related to cryptocurrency, and that would affect the market prices. I will be giving an example of the famous Elon Musk and his famous announcements that has a massive effect on the market digital prices. We all remember when Tesla banned or prevented the ability to buy or purchase its merchandise using the Bitcoin. Thus, my concern in my research was the following. Am I able to predict the Bitcoin price tendency? And the most important, can I be aware of such tendency? I will be giving a small brief about the terminologies and the techniques I use in my work, starting with Bitcoin, which is the coin I chose for my study for two reasons. The first, it's the first cryptocurrency released in 2008. It is a decentralized currency, which means that it's not controlled by any government or federal bank or organization. And the most important is that it's market capitalization, which means that any effect of this coin shift will mostly affect the other coins up or down. The Twitter APIs, it's simply the interface that allowed me to interact with the Twitter platform to extract tweets and information. The big data term is simply that describes the big data with all its characteristics, mostly the 3 V's as we describe the big data, with its high velocity of streaming, the various types of this data, and finally, the rapidly increasing volume of this data day after day. The sentimental analysis, it's the technique I use to extract the emotions and the feedback of the users expressed in their published texts or tweets toward a specific topic. As you can see in the figure, many researchers' results show that there is a strong cross-correlation between the market prices and the Twitter tweets and the evaluation of the Twitter tweets based on their sentimental evaluation and the public emotions and text. And this answers my first question in my research problem, is that I probably can be predicting the Bitcoin price tendency based on the sentimental analysis. The methodology of my work is as the following. I will be giving the model architecture, how I extracted the data, how I pre-processed the data, and finally, what was the final shape of my data set. To go deeper, as you can see in the figure, I started with extracting the tweets from Twitter using the Twitter APIs. That is after I created a developer account and got the credentials. After that, and after extracting the raw data, I applied the proper data pre-processing steps, and I performed a sentimental analysis until I reached the awareness class. And then I normalized the data and implemented it into a machine learning model to compute the performance evaluation metrics. This slide shows the method I used to extract the data. I used the Tweepy Python library, and using the Twitter APIs, I was able to extract tweets in the form shown in the figure below. The tweets were extracted based on the specific keyword I chose related to Bitcoin, which is hashtag Bitcoin or hashtag BTC. The number of tweets extracted in 24 hours, which I chose as a time interval, were around 100,000 tweets. The next step, I performed a proper data pre-processing that included data cleaning, cleaning duplicated data. Then I used the Stanford Natural Language Pre-Processing that gave me the values of these tweets. These values allowed me to have a sentimental analysis of the group tweets. In my data set, I grouped the tweets in 1 minute time frame, which I considered as a real-time, would give me a real-time evaluation. As you can see in the graph, I was able, after having the sentimental analysis and the for the group tweets in 1 minute time frame, I was able to compute the mean of the Twitter sentiments in a 1 minute time frame for the whole interval of time of extraction, which is 24 hours, as I mentioned. I drew what I considered a trigger line, which means the intersection of the mean of the Twitter tweets with this line would give me an awareness class or an awareness trigger or detection. As you can see, this was the final shape of my final data set with the features, and the last column is the right was the awareness class. And this graph shows the number of awareness notifications I was able to have to detect during the time interval, the 24 hours. The result of my work was 18 awareness notifications during the time frame, the 24 hours. Now, finally, this is the core of my experiment. First, before I implemented the dataset into a machine learning model, I was facing an unbalanced dataset, since I mentioned the number of awareness class was only 18 notifications, while for the whole dataset it was 1,440 rows. I solved this problem using the oversampling technique called the SMOT, synthetic minority oversampling technique, which creates a synthetic new samples, if I can say, of the minority class based on their k-nearest neighbor, as shown in the figure above. Then, after balancing my data set, I implemented it into a machine learning model using the Apache Spark logistic regression. The reason I chose the Apache Spark is that it handles big data scales. Finally, as you can see, I have a comparison between the results taken with using the Apache Spark and without the Apache Spark. And I figured out and deduced that there's a small enhancement while using the Apache Spark logistic regression of all the performance evaluation metrics, the accuracy, precision, recall, and so on. Finally, from my work, I had two results. First, I was able to achieve a real-time awareness of a real-time data extraction concerning the Bitcoin topic. And second, I implemented a machine learning model and achieved a high performance evaluation metrics. But for the future work, I would like to highlight two future works. First, to perform a continuous real-time data extraction along with continuous real-time awareness, which will help the user or the trader to be informed about any possible shift in the prices while he is not tracking the digital market. And this tracking can be solved or can be held by developing a software or application to be linked to my model and to send awareness notifications of various types, the trader or the user can receive the notification by his phone or by his email, etc. And thank you so much for your attendance. And please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Mustafa. Any
Thank you so much.
questions to the presenter? Many thanks for your contribution and your attendance. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, so there are no questions. Many thanks, Mustafa.
Thank you so much.
The next paper is on swarm intelligence approach for feature selection problem by Eva Tuba from Singleduman University of Belgrade, Serbia. If you could quickly, kindly, shortly introduce yourself, please.
And this is a paper done with my colleagues from Bosnia and Herzegovina and from Croatia. It is one intelligence approach for feature selection. Okay. So artificial intelligence is nowadays a hot topic everywhere, not just in scientific community, but also in everyday life. Everyone are using now artificial intelligence and think or want to know more and to use it for different purposes, from alternating the images, from voice recognition, automatic voice recognition and translation while you're traveling, and so on. So the application of artificial intelligence now are numerous and they are just growing every day. Machine learning represents a big part of artificial intelligence, and there are certain algorithms that are often used, and many problems could be defined as machine learning problems and use the machine learning algorithms for solving them. In the core, there is like 3 different types of machine learning algorithms: supervised algorithms, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. This is something that is growing every day. So nowadays you can find many different division of machine learning algorithms, but this is as I said, a core. So supervised learning represents a learning where we know what we want to be the results. So we have data and we know what are the results, how do we want to organize those data. And we are finding a method to produce that output, desired output from the input. Classification is standard supervised problem. Instances should be, our data should be divided into certain classes based on similarity or based on the difference between them. Classification problems are present in numerous applications, starting from security, medicine, autonomous vehicle. They are using classification of images in medicine for also classification of images or classification of blood results to determine if there is some disease or not. Also in agriculture, this is something that is maybe not expected, but digital images are used in agriculture. We are taking pictures of the fields, of the plants, and then by analyzing those images, we can classify fields into the one with plant disease or without, or maybe some wild animal went into those fields. So that can be also formulated as machine learning in more specific classification problem. So since there is a wide range of application where classification is needed, there is a constant need for improving those algorithms, inventing new ones. Convolutional neural networks are something that recently became rather successful for digital image classification and signal classification, better to say. So there is improvements in that area of improving algorithms. But there is also another thing that should be considered, which is features used for describing our data. All algorithms, they are using numerical data. So if we try to organize people and classify people in certain fields, we cannot just say this is Eva Tuba, this is another person, so we need to classify them. But we represent all those data with numerical attributes of them. So what are the numerical attributes depends on the purpose of the application, what is the classification that should be done. So it can be vertical and horizontal projections of images, it can be height, weight, blood results, blood analysis results, or MRI images, or security CCTV images, or whatever. So we are just trying to represent data with some numerical characteristics. What are the numerical characteristics? That is one field of research, feature selection. But once we have those features, and in one side we want to have as many features as we can, because more features can help us to differentiate instances from different classes and to find the similarity between features, instances in one class. Sometimes too many features can lead to the wrong classification because we captured too many things, including similarities between different classes. So there we have a feature selection problem. So when we extract features, we want to choose which features represents the best our instances for our concrete problem. So even if we are classifying people in two different applications, in one application it can be one subset of features, in another it can be another. So we are trying to find what features are the best for our concrete problem that we try to solve. So that is a hard optimization problem, similar to the traveling salesman problem. So it's combinatorial problem. Each features we can choose or not choose. So we see that it's exponential problem, which cannot be solved with some deterministic method. For that, there's in recent years or decades, there's swarm intelligence algorithms show good results for problems like that. So swarm intelligence algorithms are basically optimization algorithms that try to mimic. It started like trying to mimic things from a nature, because in the nature we can see some things that are working, but we are not sure really why. So we are trying to capture that and to represent that into the optimization algorithms. So all of these swarm intelligence algorithms, nowadays there are, some say, too many of them. But what is the idea of those swarm intelligence algorithms? To have that is iterative algorithm where in each iteration we are trying to get closer and closer to the optimization, optimal solution. How do we do that? Well, there are two core parts of each optimization algorithm. It's exploration and exploitation. So exploration is related to searching the complete search space, finding the potentially good areas where the optimal solution is. And once those promising areas are found, exploitation is used to fine search those areas. In this paper, we tried to use one hybridized approach. Our previous research was dealing with just researching swarm intelligence algorithms. So we found that BAT algorithm is very good for solving these kind of problems, but it has one drawback that sometimes the conversion is not toward the optimal solution is not really fast enough, so there is a need for too many iteration in order to reach the good parts. So we hybridized that algorithm with another swarm intelligence algorithm, artificial bee colony. Basically, we used we alternate between the exploration of BAT algorithm and the artificial bee algorithm. So in that case, we found a better solution faster. So these are the just formulas that are used. In general, this is the idea. We have some operator for wide search and operators for fine search. Okay, so another thing is that swarm intelligence algorithms are initially made for real problems. So for the problems that has real solutions. Feature selection is actually a discrete problem, so we needed to adjust that. And we use the hyperbolic tangents function for that. So all the solutions that are found by the swarm intelligence algorithm are then converted with the hyperbolic tangents function in order to get the 0 or 1 as a solution. So use or don't use the feature. And this is the fitness function that we use. So we are trying to maximize the classification accuracy while reducing the number of features. This is actually a multi-objective optimization problem, but since there are only 2 objectives, we use the weighted fitness function. So we put the weight on how important is to maximize the classification accuracy and how important is to minimize the feature selection. You will see that actually 0.99 was for maximizing the accuracy, and it was enough for using only 0.01 factor for decreasing the number of features. So the proposed method was implemented in Python. We used the graphic GPU for testing, and in order to check the quality of our method, we compared to another approach from the literature where many different swarm intelligence algorithms were used for the same problem. To have the fair comparison, we used the same, we set the same experiments, so we used the same data sets and also the same fitness function was used, everything was the same as in that paper. So as you can see, it is not really some large data sets or large feature numbers. The highest number of features is 22, which is not small, but again, comparing to some problems that exist nowadays, it's not really large. So these are the results. These are the mean values of fitness function, so the goal was to minimize the fitness function value. And as you can see, only in one case for the data set 4, the proposed hybridized method didn't reach the minimal value. Also, along with the mean, we reported standard deviation, and in the paper there are the best and the worst solutions. But the mean and the standard deviation is the most important data here to see the robustness and the quality of the method. And based on the fact that standard deviation for all data set was minimal, it means that it's a really robust method. So there is, in all runs, we achieved better results. Also, this is how we calculated actually the average of number of features. So in all runs, we saw how many features we have, and then we normalize it. So as you can see, only in 4 out of 17 data set, we didn't have the lowest value for that average feature number. But also in those cases, if we look for the case of the data set 6, as you can see, our average number of features is rather close to the other ones. So we know that the method is giving the minimal values for the fitness function. Maybe we can adjust the fitness function to get better results in the case of a number of features. But this shows that the method is promising and it gives good results even in this form. I also gave a bit of the conclusion already. So the feature research will try to adjust the fitness function, also to try to use different algorithms. And in this paper, we use just a simple k-mean algorithm for classification. We can use better classifiers, real classifiers, to also adjust the parameters and hyperparameters of those classifiers, and then see what are the results. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdullah, for your contribution and participation. Any questions for this paper? Any questions? Any questions from the students? Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks. The next and the last one for this session is a new method of automatic content analysis in disaster management. Ali Burakcan will be presenting from Galatasaray University. If you could kindly say a few things about yourself.
Ali Burakcan is my student. I'm Burak Parlak.
I'm sorry.
No
yes.
problem.
Yes,
I'm Burak Parlak from Galatasaray University Computer Engineering Department. And we have prepared this study at the beginning of Izmir earthquake in 2020. The question was, is it possible to generate smart methods to analyze the post period after the earthquake, the first 72 hours, the most crucial period of an earthquake, because we can divide the disaster management cycle into 2 sections, 2 parts. The first part is the pre-earthquake or pre-disaster interval. We have a time during this interval. We can generate some simulations, we can develop some algorithms, we can analyze the retrospective data. But at the beginning of the disaster, the post-disaster period will start. So we don't have any time to generate new algorithms. We have to apply what we have done before. My agenda, I will start with a brief motivation. I will show you the methodology. I will analyze I will highlight the results. I cannot explain all the results because we have also some new classification results based on this preliminary study, and I will conclude my hypothesis, my initial hypothesis. Is it possible to generate a smart application to analyze the post-earthquake period? So the motivation, the social media, the microblogging has become a powerful concept in recent years, and the microblogging becomes a new way for the local inhabitants during the disaster period. Using this bidirectional communication, we can apply the NLP algorithms to retrieve meaningful data in order to decrease the stress level and orient the emergency incident teams into the correct locations. So we need an instant information to decrease the chaos level, and the people who are speaking in Twitter and in microblogging are applying new directions in the disaster management. So it is essential to distinguish the desired information, because we will see soon that the rescue and non-rescue classes are so close. Even if we have started with this hypothesis that the microblogging is essential and useful, the non-rescue information is quite close to the disaster level, and we will apply the NLP tools in this paper to conduct the monitoring of Izmir earthquake happened on October 2020. We have started the collection before the earthquake. We have approximately 1.5 million tweets collected within 1 year. We have divided our analysis into two sections: the rescue, emergency planning, and non-rescue, the noise class. We have a short time interval. I will present my results, our results, in 3 days, the first 72 hours. Instead of collapsed building monitoring, smart team monitoring and orientation is needed for the emergency incident teams. The surveillance, the follow-up of microblocks of local inhabitants or nearby neighborhoods are important to prioritize of intervention. What is the method in this study? We have chosen the topic modeling based on latent trigger allocation. There are different models, there are different variants of LDA. We have chosen the semi-supervised method of LDA, and we have started by defining the topic classes. The classes are binary. We have a disaster rescue class, and we have a non-disaster, non-rescue class. In the disaster class, we have chosen the earthquake and the problems. In the non-rescue classes, there are some wishes, praise, and the 8 calls for the Izmir region. In this algorithm, the allocation and generation of the most relevant and important topics in a text is the main idea. We have started by the definition of this training class, and we have trained the model using the attention networks, the deep learning strategies based on BERT algorithms. Then we have analyzed our documents, the microblocks, where we mean the disaster level, the Izmir earthquake. The methodology: first of all, we have created a manual annotated corpus where we have manually selected 2 classes. The size of this corpus was at the level of 2,000 microblocks, 2,000 tweets. We have divided the data into rescue and non-rescue classes. We have labeled manually where all judges agreed upon this meaning. And only a small number of manual annotated tweets were chosen to train the BERT class. You see the flow charts of this methodology. Then we have continued with the big data. Approximately there are 1.5 million tweets in this data. We have used the BERT features to train our big data set to retrieve 2 classes. That means that we have used a semi-supervised way, semi-supervised annotation in this part. The Turkish part which is a new model, quite new model, because there are new variants of word algorithms. The state-of-the-art transformer based on Turkish language model. This paper has been prepared on Turkish language, but you can extend this study on other languages in the literature that we have added in this paper. For English language, for French language, there are alternative algorithms in disaster management. The pre-processing phase, we have started by extracting the contact numbers. It can be directly related to the post-disaster scenarios, especially the name of the streets, the name of the collapsed buildings, the name of the persons would be meaningful to generate alternative path phase to orient the emergency teams into this region. The second way was the extraction of images. By the way, we have seen, I will show you soon, that the image retrieval is quite noisy because people are adding their wishes, their aid calls by inserting the images into their tweets. And the final stage was the meaningful emojis in rescue and non-rescue classes. This part was quite distinguishable because the megaphone or loudspeaker, the siren, the flashlight, the car lights, the heavy exclamation mark, SOS sign, push pin sign, collision sign, warning sign, were found meaningful in the definition of rescue classes. So we have focused on these classes to understand the mechanism beyond these emojis. Here I have added some images from the tweets. Even these images are meaningful to analyze the severity of the earthquake. The message added next to this image are not related to aid calls. They are representing just some wishes, some praying messages. So when we are analyzing this image, we have to skip them because, as I mentioned before, the period is short and the problem is highly vital in the orientation of the staff. So the topic modeling to see how words differ between rescue and non-rescue topics. It's suitable to separate the vital ones from the trivial ones. The vital ones for the rescue class, the trivial ones for the non-rescue class. The topic modeling is to see how the words, how the collocations, what is collocations, the next words, the words which are close to these keywords differ by time. The automatic annotation method can be feasible to monitor the catastrophe, the disasters, the floods, the fires, the hurricanes might be analyzed in a similar way. So here you can see the application of the LDA. We are dividing the set of text documents, which are tweet messages, into different topics, into different clusters by selecting the topics defined by the keywords and which are also detailed with the collocation lists. Of course, these parameters, alpha or beta, are the concentration parameters used in LDA algorithm. We have generated here a small list of the topics in both classes. You can see that there are the image links, the images, and the emojis. So we must be careful with them. As I mentioned, the images are meaningful, but they are carrying also false positives. So you have to check the meaning of the images and the emojis when you are in the rescue class. In the rescue class, the yellow one, we have lütfen, please, acil, emergency, İzmir, yayalım, let's propagate. Altında, below, bina, building, enkaz, collapse, and the yardım, the aid call. On the other class, we have also image, linked image, announced emoji, İzmir, geçmiş olsun as a wish, as a praying message. The place, the citizens during this earthquake, and so on. The top 10 words for each class, sorted by the relevance probability, are divided into their meanings using the LDA algorithm. So we can use this analysis into a spatial temporal analysis.
I'm sorry to interrupt this, my brother.
I will finish, yes, I'm finishing by this spatial temporal activity, and we have created a heat map where you can see the non-rescue and rescue classes. The rescue class is focused on the center, on the epicenter of the earthquake. On the other hand, the non-rescue class is in the neighborhood of İzmir section. The conclusion, our study focused on the 2020 İzmir earthquake. We have presented our findings into two different corpuses by manual annotated corpus and automated annotated corpus. And we think that our results are promising for the development of a smart analysis algorithm. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please.
Thank you, Ismail Burakbarla, for your presentation. I'm asking as well one more time, any questions? Okay, I think there are no questions. The presenters may get their certificates from outside help desk. They are ready, and lunch will be announced. The session today is, the first session is over. There will be announcement now for lunch, and many thanks to all of you.
Lunch is at the Varna Hotel restaurant located at the lobby floor. The meeting will continue 2 p.m. Don't forget to bring your lunch stamps. Enjoy your meal.